Hello, everybody, and welcome all of you, especially you, Sue. Thank you for coming again at the Earthman Legal Fest. Now the second time in digital environment. The next time we truly hope it will be a physical environment. But for this time we still have the Zoom sessions. This session will be about law firm marketing, and we have with us Sue Bramall. Thank you, Sue, for coming, and thank you for accepting our invitation to host this session and to speak about law firm marketing trends and actualities in the UK. This will be a pre-recorded session, actually, because we made this will be an interview-based session, and we made it like 1 or 2 weeks ago with Sue, so we will just play it, and then all the kind attendees can watch and follow. And during the video, in case you would have any questions or comments, you can just put it in the chat or the Q&A portal in the Zoom, and like after 30 minutes. We will have a Q&A session. We will turn our cameras back on after the video, and we will have the Q&A session, and we will answer all your questions and comments with Sue. So thank you very much and enjoy this session. We warmly welcome you in the 2021 Earthman Legal Fest. My name is Mátyás Környei, and I will be your host during this session, where we will discuss law firm marketing, its current status, as well as potential opportunities for law firms based on UK market insights provided by Sue Bramall to us. Welcome, Sue. We are very happy to have you with us today. And as a brief introduction, Sue has many years of experience in legal marketing and will lead us during the sessions through the UK legal market and marketing landscape. We'll discuss both some good working and not so well functioning parts of the field as well. Sue has been working in professional services marketing since 1990, and she's working as a lawyer since 2001. She has a background in management consultancy. She understands fairness, perspective, and she's focused delivering tangible results and return on investment, so on. She set up Berners Marketing, which is a legal marketing firm, in 2004, and since then she and her team provides specialized marketing support to many ambitious law firms in the UK and overseas. She also members of the International Law Consultancy Network. So, Sue, as I mentioned, we are very happy to have you with us, and let me start with asking about, knowing that the UK has a somewhat deregulated market, how this deregulation affected law firms, their marketing activities, and business opportunities in general in the UK legal market?
Thank you, Matthias. I'm really pleased to be with you here at LawFest today. It's a shame that I can't be in Hungary, but I guess it's great that technology allows us to speak to each other anyway. So yes, we've been deregulated in the UK for over a decade now, and there was a great deal of concern before this happened. A lot of people were very worried about what it might mean for a law firm to be owned by somebody who was not a solicitor. In actual fact, I think many of the concerns did not materialise. Many of the smaller firms in particular saw this as an opportunity to reward people within their business who were maybe very long serving and very loyal and very critical to that business. Often it might have been, say, the finance director who was very involved in the financial success of the business, but was unable to invest and was unable to participate in the business. It was also a way of keeping people who might want to go elsewhere. There are many firms in the UK who are actually husband and wife, where the partner was the backbone of the non-legal activities, and why would they not be a good partner in that business? Then at the other end of the spectrum, of course, we have had external investment. And probably one of the one that hit the headlines the most was a firm called Knight, And this was a very interesting story because the partner, who was a corporate lawyer, left his law firm and went to work in-house in asset management for a number of years, made a lot of contacts in funding and asset management. And then he came back to his law firm and brought external investment with him, and then went on to list in the stock exchange. So that was somebody who had a very interesting combination of skills and contacts to bring that forward. The other sort of external investment that we have seen, obviously you've got the Big Four accountants who have launched big legal practices. We have maybe the unions who were previously offering legal advice on an in-house basis, but now they've turned that into a business structure. And there have even been a couple of public sector legal departments. So I don't know what your equivalent would be, but a regional authority, we call them counties. So not national, but sort of local for a region. The lawyers within the council would also offer services to other public bodies, maybe schools or small councils or charities. So they would operate in the not-for-profit area, but they would be owned by a local government. And I don't think there have been any scandals so far from any of these ownership structures.
How the competition actually merged and affected the law firm business due to these deregulations, and were law firms actually be able to adopt with these new opportunities caused by this deregulation and change the market landscape completely? Because, as you mentioned, the alternative legal service providers came in, non-solicitors owned businesses came in. So how this affected the legal landscape, and how the law firms were able to adapt to these changes, especially, for example, the smaller law firms?
Okay, so a couple of questions there. So if I just, if we go to the slide which talks about the growth of alternative legal businesses, you'll see that we have, well, I've got listed there 5 regulators. We have 11 regulators in the UK. So people who are conveyancers, for example, who only do conveyancing, have their own regulator. And we also have, obviously, intellectual property patent attorneys, trademark attorneys are separate. But the conveyancers, for example, we expected there to see mergers with property companies, such as estate agents or surveyors. But actually, talking about the small firms, which you're interested in, what we've seen there is interesting combinations. So a planning lawyer with a planning consultant, also a very, we have quite a few niche firms which specialize in employee benefits, so share option schemes, and that might, for example, there's a firm, Pett Franklin, their partners are, one is a lawyer, one is an accountant. There are other firms that might work in the area of media, and you will quite often have people there who are perhaps of a PR, who look after the reputation management alongside the people in the law. So yeah, I think people have been quite creative. There's an element of competition amongst the regulators, which is a strange thing. But what that does mean is, with some regulators, it is easier, shall I say, to get approved or regulated, and so people are now able to choose within reasons, but they can choose to be regulated perhaps by the Bar Council instead of the Solicitors Regulatory Authority, and that might be appropriate if they are doing work that is not restricted. So, for example, I know somebody who advises charities, and he tends to advise on a very strategic level rather than, he's not doing any litigation or anything. So for him, it was simpler and quicker to go via the Bar Standards Authority. So I think it's quite interesting, and it's good if you are creative and you want to expand beyond perhaps very narrow lines in your practice. If I go back to mentioning the listed firms, the one that I mentioned, Knights, that is led by David Beach, they actually have specialist departments, I think, who are non-lawyers as well. So I think they have planning and environmental consultants in their property teams as well. And this adds value. And I think this is almost like the accountants, but in reverse. Who, you know, they have the consultants and they're adding the lawyers, and this is the other way around. So.
We spoke a lot about how to get clients during this meeting with professional bodies and other professionals other than lawyers, and it's a very good way actually. In Hungary we are doing a lot as well. It reflects really with one of my sayings that I more like to want to be friends with businessmen than with lawyers, because they brings in the business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but what are the other main sales channel, client retaining channels for law firms in the UK, and especially with respect to this regulation? Because you might know, and we discussed this earlier as preparation, that in Hungary the legal marketing is very regulated. You can't even say your client's name. You can't even put out your prices on your website. You can have a website, and that was even after many years of arguing with the regulators that lawyers should be allowed to have a website. So it's very regulated in Hungary, and in the UK it's now quite competitive, quite deregulated. So what are the main channels for client retention for law firms and lawyers in these days?
So it would depend very much on which practice area you are, whether you are mostly in the business arena or if you are in consumer services. So, I mean, you're litigation, aren't you, Matthias? So, I mean, the big business cases are probably mainly still coming through channels of contact, professional contacts. And as you say, networking is still the most important. Professional reputation and networking is the most important. But websites are definitely growing, and I would say that 5 or 10 years ago, nobody got good business leads off a website, but that's not true now, because business people are just as busy as you are. And they may know a lawyer who provides one service, but maybe they don't, you know, maybe they know a lawyer who does property work, but that lawyer doesn't do media or defamation. And so the quickest way to find out is simply to Google. So also international inquiries, you know, sometimes they may not have a good connection to a network. And it's simply quicker to just Google property lawyer in Hong Kong. So the volume of this is not great, but it's not always bad quality. Sometimes it can be good quality, but that person is just short of time and they're just looking quickly. So that's on the B2B side. I think joint ventures as well, along with the networking and events like this have been good. I think the Zoom events have actually opened up new audiences a bit like this. I don't think I ever expected to be speaking in Hungary, and here I am. And that's been the same. The world has become much smaller for international audiences. So some firms are really making use of that. On the services to consumers or private clients, that is very, very competitive in the UK now, and the internet is incredibly important. If you took an area such as personal injury, I don't know if it's the same in Hungary, but we've not gone quite as far as America, but it has become quite a big sector in the UK. And so therefore, people will bid for the Google AdWords, and for some of the key advertisements, they will really be paying, you know, over £100, maybe a couple of £100 for their top keywords. You have other consumer claims, so the emissions scandals, the car emissions, you'll be familiar with that, I guess.
Yeah,
Volkswagen and Daimler, yeah. So they're
in Hungary, it was not a thing, unfortunately. One or few of my friends are asked about it, but in Hungary, there is no actual class action or nothing really initiative in respect of this. But I know that in Western Europe, there were a lot of class actions about it and a lot of claims about it.
Yeah, so I even saw a law firm take a full page advert in the Daily Telegraph, which is our biggest newspaper. That must have really cost thousands of pounds. I'm surprised. I've not seen that before. So that's a big change. There would be, so there's pay-per-click advertising. And then we tend to work a lot more in the search engine optimization side of things. So this is where a law firm wishes to appear at the top of Google for divorce or prenuptial agreements or selling a house. Then this is fairly easy to do. I say easy, it depends on the competition, but it's easier to do that using good blogs and articles, because once you can get to the top of page one, it's fairly easy to stay at the top. But if you're paying to advertise, the minute you stop paying, you drop right off the front page. So firms have to choose whether they wish to take an optimization approach or a pay-per-click approach.
What is the driving force for the retail market? How the retail clients are approached by the law firms?
I think a lot of the retail firms in the UK are very old and traditional, have been in the towns for a long time. And I guess that's true in Hungary, that, you know, the firms have been there a long time. So it's not always a problem that the firm doesn't have profile or awareness, but actually the biggest problem when you're a very old firm is that you have legacy systems and legacy data and legacy habits. And often if the data is old and poor quality, in as much as it's not structured in a modern way like a CRM needs, what happens is nobody really wants to go in and clean it up, and it just stays messy and not being used. So I think this was very common 10, 15, 20 years ago, that people knew they needed to be better about managing their client data and encouraging cross-selling and referring. And it was very difficult because we didn't really have the systems and we didn't really have the commitment to doing things in the right way. But I think as the competition has come, then even the traditional firms have had to sort of shape up, and a newer generation has come through, which is more data savvy. You know, we all go online if we want insurance, if we want to renew our driving license. We're all used to now putting in data to give the insurers adequate information to serve us well. Whereas you might have gone to the lawyer and you give that same information, but you have to do it all in handwriting and it takes an hour. And why am I paying to tell my lawyer my address? And you know, that we had to move on from that and become much more efficient and much more data driven. So I think the firms, and I mean, many more firms in the UK would have a marketing person. I think you don't. This is quite rare in Hungary, isn't it?
Yes, it's quite rare. Actually, only 2 guys at the moment who are working as full-time marketing persons in law firms, and those are 2 big international law firms. What was the argument as to they have to show their prices on the website? What was the main argument behind it? Because in Hungary, the the leading argument is quite the opposite. So the regulators do not want any law firms to put prices on their websites, because it is said that if they do, they will use prices which seem beneficial, which seem competitive, then afterwards they will overcharge the client, and that would not be beneficial for the clients, and that would harm the business and harm the reputation of lawyers as a whole group. And so, but as I understand, in the UK, it was quite opposite, the argument and the drive. So in the UK, it was actually made compulsory to put your prices on your website. So what was the main argument behind that?
Well, we have a body which manages complaints against lawyers, a legal ombudsman. I don't know if you have this, and they publish on a quarterly basis what the most common causes of complaints are. And often it's not often always the amount of the money, it's the fact that the client wasn't expecting to pay that much. So the quote, the actual bill at the end bears no resemblance to what was quoted. So I think what you're saying in Hungary is correct, that but only the problem only arises if the end price is not the same as the price on the website. So a bit like if you book a flight on EasyJet, it's very annoying when you see an advert for me to go to Budapest for £50, but by the time I've put my luggage and my seat and everything else in, it costs me £100. I feel cheated, don't I? So
Sure.
The argument was that this would be introduced for those services which were quite clear-cut, where they should be able to provide a quote which would not change. And in any event, there's two things really. Is you have to be good at quoting, and you have to be good then at managing your costs. And in the past, I think lawyers have not been good at either. The quoting tends to be, without so much science behind it, and sometimes with a lot of fear. So you might know that everybody else in town is charging £150 for wills. So you feel I can't charge more, even though I know it will cost me more and I will do a better service. So here, is the problem really that your will should cost £150, or is it that you don't have the skills to sell it for £250? And this comes into pricing strategy. So I don't know what car you buy, Matthias, but whether we drive a little smart car or a big Lexus, it still only takes us from A to B. But we make that choice of our car or our watch or our clothes, because we have certain values in our mind. So with the law firm who has the South London, the Middle London, North London, they have a reason why it costs more to do the same piece of work in these different locations. And they justify that to their clients who want to feel that I live in North London, so therefore I pay more for my house than someone who lives somewhere else. So this comes into being able to sell the value of the work that you do. And I think I put a slide as well, which you can see, which you can't really see the detail, but this is for a family law piece of work. And in the past, what would happen is a quote would maybe be half a page, if that. It would be very, very short. It would say, my hourly rate is this, and I estimate it will take 10 hours, and therefore the cost estimate is that. But now, what they do is we'll put much more information, in particular, looking at what is the value to the client of this piece of work. So if you were negotiating a prenuptial agreement with somebody whose worth was 1 million, would you charge the same as for prenuptial for somebody who was worth 100 million? Because you're going to save the second person a lot more money then you might save or safeguard the first person. So finding out what the value of what you're going to do is. So if we go back to our scenario about the will, you know, okay, £150 sounds a lot if everybody else is charging that. But if that person has potentially got a tax bill of £50,000 and you're saving them half of that tax bill, then it's a good investment, isn't it? So conveying that message about why it's good to instruct me, why I'm going to deliver value, and why this price is worth it. Why I'm, you know, do you have L'Oreal? Do they have the same campaign? Because I'm worth it.
Yeah.
Advertise. So that's what you say, because I'm worth it.
Thank you, Sue. My next question would be that how much is the marketing budget for law firms in the UK, small, the medium, the large ones? And this would be the one side of the matter, and the other side of the matter, that how the law firms can in the UK estimate their clients' budgets for the legal works.
Okay. So, okay, two sides to that. So in the UK, we're very keen on benchmarking, and a lot of law firms participate every year in a financial benchmarking survey, where if they contribute their financial information confidentially, they'll receive a report, and that will tell them which quartile of performance they appear in. So I've got a slide there which just shows you what all the overheads are, so you can compare how your firm in Hungary does with that particular statistics. But across all firms of all sizes, the average marketing budget would be 1.6%. The upper quartile, so the firms that are spending more than that, would be 3%. And I would say 3% is more of the norm for a firm that is pretty active about its marketing. If you were in a launch scenario, so you were launching a new firm, a new office, a new service, you should be looking at least 5% for that. I mean, remember that businesses outside of the legal profession will easily be spending 10% or more on their marketing. So these figures are very low compared to other businesses. How do you find out what your clients want to spend? That was a big question. Well, you can just ask. You know, we're quite shy, lawyers, quite shy, don't like talking about money so much. But, you know, a lot of people in business respect quite straightforward discussions about pricing, about legal spend. If you're going to ask that information there, you've got to be willing to sort of have an open dialogue. So certainly the big firms and the big clients will be having much more open discussions, even open book accounting, sometimes on some contracts now. I think when you're in big firms and you might have a team of people, even a few people who are working on tenders all the time, you build up quite a body of knowledge of when you're winning and when you're not winning and why. But I think people are very nervous about talking about pricing, but actually if you develop negotiation skills, which you probably use for your clients anyway, and use those with your own clients, it's not always about the price, it's about the value, isn't it? What does that business client want to achieve? Certainly in litigation, Matthias, there are firms that we've worked with, forensic accountants, who are looking at the probabilities of success at different stages of a case and helping a client to manage risk. I think, again, that's perceived as added value. One thing, sorry, you mentioned earlier, and I meant to say that this connects back to the sort of performance, and you were saying that in Hungary every lawyer has to be excellent. Have you come across these litigation tracking companies yet, such as Premonition?
No, because in Hungary it's prohibited to publish or even communicate your litigation success track.
Ah, okay. So these
they just can't communicate it.
Yeah, so in America, they are analyzing all the court data. So every case you have been in, every judge you've been in front of, every case, and then they calculate what your win rate is on the type of case in front of a certain judge, and very, very scientific. So
for me, actually, the conclusion of this whole discussion that lawyers were lawyers for so long that now they have to realize that they are just as service providers as anybody else in the industries or in the markets. They have to do the operations, they have to do the marketing, but not on their own. It's better to have people who are professionalized, who are educated in these fields. So lawyers shall focus in the future as well in law, but they need to understand that this is a business as well, not just service belonged to them for so long in the past. So thank you, Sue, for this truly insightful discussion. We covered a lot of interesting topics and received great tips from you as per the running of business and marketing of law firms. And I would like now to have the audience has the opportunity to ask the questions during the upcoming Q&A session. Thank you very much, Sue. Thank you for being with us. And we are looking forward to hear the audience questions and have your answers during the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the discussion earlier, and thank you again for being here with us today for the Q&A. Now the attendees have the opportunity to ask their questions. So far, no questions were asked in the Q&A, so I would like just to encourage the audience to ask if they have any questions relating to the field. I can assure you that she's very insightful and she has very broad knowledge about anything related to law firm marketing. Okay, now first few questions are just pouring in. Joet asks that as someone currently working in IT, information technology, and he would just add to as far as Google is concerned, there are other ways as well, not just ads and search rankings, maybe marketing.
Are you talking about Google Business?
Yeah, I'm not sure what's actually the question. It's just maybe it's just try to point out that there are other digital marketing opportunities than advertising and search engine optimization, like knowledge panels, GMB, automated data sources. So maybe the question I'm guessing here would ask that whether have you any experience with these GMB, knowledge panels, automated data sources, or other source of digital marketing opportunities other than search engine optimization and social media marketing and advertising?
I'm sorry, I don't know what GMB stands for.
Hmm?
You mean Google Business? You mean Google Business knowledge panels? I wouldn't be a Google expert, and there's changes all the time. One thing very simple, I think, just to check Google Business listing is accurate and fully. A lot of
yeah. We have another question here that what services do you offer with your marketing agency to large law firms with corporate clientele in terms of marketing? So what are your marketing offerings for the large enterprise law firms?
Okay, so you're talking about me. This is sales. I mean, maybe I could answer this offline, but I think it would depend on every firm, to be honest. I mean, the way it's structured in the UK now is that when I started a long time ago, you would have a marketing manager who did everything from strategy, events, stuffing envelopes for the Christmas cards. And then that has developed in the very large corporate firms in the UK. You might have marketing teams of 50 or more people. When I left Pinsent, there were over 50 people, and that would be broken into specialists, so people who only do bids and tenders, people who only do public relations, people who only do the digital or the Google. But what happens is what's happened in the UK is that these people would tend to sort of eventually leave large firms and either go to small firms or set up businesses. So in the UK, there's a lot of choice for smaller and medium-sized firms who they may not want to employ a marketing person, but they can find people who work on a freelance basis or a part-time basis or a project basis. So there's quite a big marketing community, and there's generally plenty of choice if you need help with a particular project. Maybe you want a CRM system, or maybe you want a rebrand or a content strategy. There's a lot of choice, and I guess there aren't the international barriers anymore. So that there's no reason why you can't call on English services from Hungary. So, or vice versa.
Yeah, that's totally true. We have another question. What do you think, Sue, that how important are the legal rankings like the Chambers, Legal 500s, IFLR, etc., and the publication in the legal magazines like the Lexology, or in Hungary it's quite popular to see Legal Matters. What do you think about that? How important is for law firms, maybe smaller boutique and large law firms, to be included in those publishments?
Okay, so I'm very much different from most marketing consultants in this regard, is that I'm not a fan of the directories for two reasons. I think they're a game. These are businesses that make their money from advertising. So remember that they have a commercial objective to get as much money out of you as possible. And that would be okay if what they were doing in terms of their rankings, I think, was really on the button. But the whole process is very, very slow. And, nowadays we're used to league tables. My son plays cricket. When he comes off the cricket pitch, he knows exactly what his score was, what his average run rate was, his position in the league table. He knows that on the same day. And yet when the directories come out, it might be 18 months after you did that case. Your practice area might have changed quite dramatically in that time. And they take a huge amount of your time. And given that you don't have a large marketing budget and you don't have a lot of spare time, is that really, really the best way of you spending your time? So I'm not very popular in that view. It's not a common view, but equally in Britain, there are a lot of marketing consultants who help firms with their directory submissions and make a lot of money from doing this. What they are important for, I will say, is recruitment, because people want to work for a firm with a good profile. And rankings are important, I think, in that regard, from a personal regard. But some of the, for example, Knights, the PLC that I mentioned, they don't participate in the rankings. So there are a few of the very big firms in the UK that just say, no, we're going to spend our time and our resources in other ways. You mentioned others like Lexology. I think Lexology is good if you have a niche and there are not lots of other law firms writing in the same area. So if you took an area like employment law in the UK, there are many, many, many firms who put the article about exactly the same case, but really only the first or second firm that covers that case is going to get any value, because the others are just all too late. So if you're going to spend money on that, you've got to be really quick and make sure that you're the first or the second who's getting publicity. We tend to call this, not just in the legal profession, but generally, you might have heard of vanity publishing or vanity marketing. That's what it's known as in marketing, because it appeals to your soul. So it's a very hard thing to say no to. You've got to really, really be very confident in your own profile to be able to say no. But there's a very good list, and I can send you a link afterwards. There's a man who maintains a website of what are called spammy awards. So whether these awards have got a genuine research process that would fulfill research methodology, quality control, or whether it's just an advertising business that's dressed up as an award. So there's a lot of these about, and I think you have to be very careful not to just be spending a lot of money on something that doesn't actually deliver new business. Of course, one other thing, if you ask all your new clients how they heard of you and where they came from, then you'll be able to know whether you're getting any work from the directories or not. So that's important as well.
Okay, thank you. And we have time for one last question, I think. Petra asked us, so do you believe that monthly or quarterly newsletters can still be considered as an effective marketing tool? You've briefly touched upon it with respect to Lexology, but what could be, there's an additional question, that what could be more timely alternatives and more recent alternatives to this?
I think you're talking about, rather than Lexology, which is a third party where you submit articles.
Not only, but the actual legal firm newsletters as well. So lots of firms just do that, to send out like hundreds of newsletters in a year to their clients. Whether is this truly effective, or it just sort of waste of time and resources? And what is the alternative to this?
Yeah, well, newsletters, if you're just sending one general newsletter to thousands of people with no differentiation, then a few people might be interested, but a lot of people might not be. So this comes back to, I think I mentioned in the presentation, about having good data and good CRM systems, and also so knowing what is appropriate to your clients. So if you have a fast-moving area of law, so something like employment law, where there's cases coming out every month, COVID has been very difficult for employers, then a monthly newsletter for employers is a good idea. If you're in an area such as commercial property, where the law doesn't change as quickly, quarterly might be sufficient, or even if you have a regular quarterly bulletin, if there's a hot case or a hot announcement, you can still send an e-shot to cover that outside the normal schedule. So I think it's different. We say horses for courses, different newsletters for different groups of clients, but that means you've got to have good segmentation of your database.
Okay, thank you. But to just had one additional question in this way. Whether these newsletters can be regarded as an efficient way to keep in touch with your existing clients, and are you able to target potential new clients with these client alerts? Maybe it would be interesting just to hear about what's the actual rate of success of this newsletter, for example, in terms of retaining a new client and retaining new business from an actual client. Do you have any information on that how in general, that what is the success rate of these newsletters in terms of new client retention and new work retention from existing clients?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say that you would expect your newsletter to be the main reason you retain a client, because if you're not giving good customer service, it doesn't matter how good your newsletter is, they're not going to stay. But what is important, I think, is you must always remember that your clients may be being targeted by one of your competitors or one of the big four accountants, and that they are very, very good at their marketing. So do you want your client to hear about that case or that new legislation first from you, or do you want them to hear about it from Deloitte? And that's what you've got to think about, is it won't be the only thing that keeps them, but it may be part of, if they start developing an impression that you're slow or you're not on the ball or you're not responsive, and Deloitte are chip knocking away at the door, can we have an opportunity to work with you? Slowly, they're building up an impression that they're a good firm to work with, and that's how you lose clients. It's rarely one thing. It may be that someone else has been knocking at the door for quite a long time. Sorry, there was a second part of that question, which I just...
how can you retain new clients with newsletters? Is it a good way to try to do that?
Yeah, so obviously I'm guessing that GDPR was the same for you in Hungary when that came in, that we are no longer allowed to email people that we do not have a legitimate relationship with. So the use of newsletters for targeting cold prospects is very, has disappeared with GDPR. So you have to be better at segmenting your database from your clients, and then doing other things like this, running an event and making new contacts. You can, of course, still send, in England, you can send printed newsletters to people who are not your clients. So that can work, but that's stopped with COVID because people aren't in their office and you don't have home addresses. So that became very difficult. So yeah, I think people have tended to use, if you're looking at attracting new clients, LinkedIn has definitely become more important, and one-to-one contact via email and trying to get a conversation started. I think that's been a very big change over the last 2 years, that newsletters for prospecting has almost disappeared in that way.
Okay, yeah, we actually experienced some sort of the same degree as per GDPR. Because of GDPR, this marketing channel to like disappear for a little. Thank you, Sue. I think this session our time is up, and thank you very much for being here with us again today and answer our questions and provide us with truly useful additional insights to the pre-recorded interview as well. I was really enjoying to have this interview with you and to have the Q&A with you in this session, and I hope the audience also enjoyed it. And now in a few minutes, the next session will be the legal career paths. You can hear there about what are the options for a lawyer to do their legal career path. So whether you should be an attorney, how is it like to be an in-house counsel or a notary. It will be a very interesting discussion as well. So we hope we will see you there as well, all the attendees or who might be interested of this topic. For now, I would like just to thank you all for coming and hearing and being with us here. And thank you again Sue, for your availability to us. Thank you very much, and have a nice day and see you soon. I hope so, in person as well. So bye, thank you very much.